Welcome to another episode of the Kick and Cover podcast. Today we have Ken Stanley. I can't enunciate today. With us, he is the special teams coordinator at Otter Valley Union High School in Southwest Vermont. Coach, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem, Coach. I appreciate you coming on. We'll talk about a couple different special teams things today. That kind of stuff you guys gotta look at or do, and your philosophy and stuff. So, but first, you want to give coaches kind of a background on who you are and kind of how you ended up at Otter Valley?
I grew up playing high school football on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, small Catholic school. I didn't have the size or speed or skill playing college, but after college even in college, I helped out coaching at a prep school. The next year I moved back home on Cape Cod, spent 2 seasons with Monomoy High School. And then my final season on Cape Cod, I coached with Nauset High School, coached by Bruce Strunk, who was a really good coach in Maryland. And I also, he had on his staff Jerry Gordon, who he came from Virginia. He's coached at colleges before. And even Keith Kenyon, who was a big-time Rhode Island coach. He had coached at Nauset previously. He was a special team coordinator. So that was a big step up when I went to Nauset. That was like a real live high school football program. And then the following year, I got a teaching job in Vermont. Moved out to Otter Valley. It's southwestern Vermont. If it sounds desolate, it's because it is. And like a lot of special teams coordinators, you're the younger coach or whatever. Okay, you're not coordinating. You're not doing this. You're not doing the defense. You're not doing JV. All right, you're doing special teams. So I was happy. I was excited to do it. I wasn't a kicker or anything. So there was stuff to learn. And so last year was my first year doing special teams. And like I said, there was some triumphs. There were some failures. So I'll tell you some things that I think, how it went, and then, obviously jump in when you can. So I'll start it like I start off our practices. So we do special teams, like all special teams coaches. We only have a limited amount of time, so we gotta get the reps, gotta get people going. It's the beginning of practice. We're trying to get people energized. We do kickoff. I prefer kicking from a hash. I was taught by Coach Kenyon at Nauset. He always kicked on a hash. He had 4 on the short side, 6 on the long side, and he said, if we're gonna get beat, it's not by them taking it to the wide side. If we're gonna kick it to one side, I like that because it gets them going side to side. And I went to a special teams clinic right before the pandemic, and that was a big principle that Iowa State head coach had. Get people going side to side. Don't let them, go right down the middle. Get them moving laterally. We have gone 5 and 5. I just prefer side to side. Tell my kid, put it on the left hash, kick it all the way down there. And then you can kind of play with it. You can kind of have maybe your 4 stronger players. We only have 25 kids in our program, so everybody's doing everything. If you can get a kid a blow, great. Otherwise, you're putting a freshman who's going to be running downfield with his hair on fire, and he's not going to necessarily break down. That's one problem I had is, maybe pick a freshman who had been working hard on scout or something like that. And one thing going on over a breakdown is, again, those young kids. One thing we try to drill, and this isn't any defense or offense drill, is like a shimmy drill, or that's what we call it, breakdown or buzz the feet. So I'll even do that before I'll put everybody on the field, get them almost after stretches, and then one whistle they're running, second whistle they're shimmying. So who can run fastest, the quickest, like who can get that spurt but know when to cut it down, know when to break down, know when to buzz your feet or shimmy, and be in a good stance. I always like the inside foot up principle when you're breaking down. That all said, if you look at some of my film, we got kids just running downfield. They're getting the ball carriers coming up. and the ball carrier makes one move, and it's but like I said, I like to play with it. Maybe put my stronger players on the left side. Those kids that they're practice players, you're just trying to get them on special teams. Maybe put them over on the side, the long side, and just get them going side to side. We didn't give up what we did. I did my first year. We did not give up a kickoff return for a touchdown. Sometimes they got to the midfield. Depends on your kicker. It's Vermont. We have kids join the team. Our kicker joined the team week 4. So, and he had a boot, so he was going to do it. That's just the way it went. But yeah, and then moving on to kickoff return. I'm a big fan of double teams. I think in the NFL, that's actually, they outlawed it. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but I actually went up to a high school official and I asked, what's the deal with double teams on kickoff return? And he said, yeah, that's fine. So I'm a big fan. It's just called double R3. When we get it, we want to go one side or the other. Obviously, if they kick it to the side we're not trying to go, it's a little bit, that's a little bit troubling. But otherwise, we want to double, maybe the third, if they're 5 and 5, we want to double the middle guy. And I'll tell a little bit of a story. I wish I had the clip, but don't worry, that's my fault. So we were playing a team, it was week 2. Our returner had one, he took it to the house week 1. And so I'd seen from our week 2 opponent that they had a young kicker. He couldn't really get it all the way down. He was kicking it to like the 30, 25-yard line. So I took my main returner and I moved him up. And he's like, Coach, what are you doing? I took one to the house. What are you doing? I said, no, I'm telling you. And they do what we do. So they kick it to one side. They have 4 and 6. So I said, no, that he's going to kick you a pop-up, and it's going to come right down here. The double team, I even said to the kid, if it's a short kick, the double team's off, we're man on man. Fortunately, first play of the game, it was one of my shining achievements as a coach. It's a pop-up. The kid knew, okay, double team's off. I'm getting the free runner and short kick. Kid takes it. He just weaves in and out. Took it straight down the left side and then got lateral and got to the house. So that was one triumph. That was, like I said, it wasn't because of a double team, but I like the way the kids picked it up where, if it's a short kick, now a person who's supposed to be blocking now has the ball. So I got to go get the free defender. So I was proud of those kids. They picked it up. Other things I've experimented on with return last year, we did middle bounce. I've just seen that on Twitter. Basically, you're not blocking either the widest guy on either side. So the bullet, and you look on film, make sure they're not the bullet, make sure they're not the guy coming straight in. But those contained guys, don't even block them. Just get your double team on the middle guys. You can do 2 double teams or 1 double team. And then you got to know that the team's going to kick it in the middle. That's something I forget what team, but it was something I scouted. I don't know about you, but scouting for specialty, it's actually, I find it easier. There's only so many special teams plays in a game. When you do ODK, just look at the kicks and you can kind of get some tendencies. Is that something you do, or?
There's some of that. Some of that like punting. I'll use punting for example. Like punting, I just set that kicking sheet on fire, because high school punting is just so dang erratic. Kickoff, like for our kick return against their kickoff, usually, or at least you can see a trend throughout the year. Usually your worst ones like the first 2 weeks, kind of but that's also usually week 1's when people are most emboldened, in general. But you kind of go. So here's a lot of coaches, from my experience, won't change what they do, at least formationally. Like their punt formation is not changing year to year. Their kickoff formation ain't changing year for year. Now how they kick or where they kick will probably change based off their kicker. Their punt return for most part ain't changing. If anything's gonna change, probably gonna be that field goal PAT, field goal block aren't changing. Field goal PAT. The only ones where you have differences are the swinging gate polecat teams. But you know who those guys usually are. Am I missing one? Oh, kick returns. Oh, they all just stay. I'm probably the one. I'm probably one of the few that will actually change consistently. Whereas most guys are just going to kind of keep it the same from year to year. But also, a lot of those other schools in our area, either the head coach runs it or he determines what the special teams coordinator is going to run.
Yeah. No, that's kind of what I like one thing I picked this up from a clinic a couple years ago is just the general formation. You see the college teams, they'll put, instead of putting 5 up front, they'll put 4. So, and I remember somebody asked in the clinic, and they're like, do you worry about onside kicks? And the coach is like, no, they never do it. No, you'll fall on it. You got 4 guys up there, you'll be fine. And what do you know? We're playing a team, and all of a sudden they pick a hash to kick it on, and I only have 4 guys up there, and they had a heck of an onside kick. And that was I guess a failure for me. They recovered an onside kick, took advantage of us only having 4 in the front line. So when you get burned like that, it doesn't matter that you learned it at a clinic or that the college coach got all these great stats. I'm putting 5 up there. I got to cover my butt. You know what I mean? As a first year coach, you got to be not careful, but it was that stung, giving up the onsides, giving up an onsides. What do you do for kind of hands team? Is there anything specific?
We use the old school. I've toyed with some stuff, but from a hands team perspective, I've kind of just used the old every other that half 5 in the front, 5 in the back, all angled off each other. I don't think in 2 years as a special teams coordinator, I think we've had to use it once. And I think they kicked it deep. You prep it every Thursday, but that's about usually the extent of it for me. We'll do something, usually at least 1 or 2 camp days when we install it. We'll do a lot of squib drill and stuff and onside drill for those key guys. So that's kind of our install for that. I know colleges do a bunch of a vastly different one. I forget how to explain it. There's 6 in the front, 2 in the back, and then 1 adjuster usually, or vice versa. Because they're more because in college you get the kid that's more willing to just go whack somebody in the face. When they run over there, instead of trying to get the ball, they're going to try to whack that front level guy. So in college, really, your front level guys become the, unless it's kicked right to them, a blocker, and then those back to that side will be the ones that get the ball. So.
Okay, yeah. And there is anything, do you, going back to film, is there those surprise onside kicks? How do you kind of handle those? Is it just?
We don't see it too often. 3 years ago, my first year here when I was the co-DC before I became the special teams coordinator, Tecumseh did that week 1 against us. But from film study, I know most of our guys on what they'll do and the odds are. If I feel like it, I'll creep people up if I'm sensing something. But I don't. We were 4-2 most of the season. We were 5-man the last 2 weeks. But that's because those 2 teams we were playing, they were teams that squibbed and onsided a lot. That was kind of our adjustment. Beaver Creek the last week of the season, I knew that they essentially kicked onsides or pop squibs every time they kicked off. I also knew their signs because you could see the dude signing on film. For the film they sent, you can see that. My buddy played him 2 weeks ago before, and he knew who the special teams guy was, and he told me who it was and what to look out for. He's like, if you get this or this, that's what they're doing. If they do this, that's what they're doing. It's all not hard to figure out.
Yeah. I know one team we used to play every year. And we had a kid transfer over from the school. He goes, watch where the coach stands on the sideline. That's where he wants it squibbed. He wants it on his sideline. He'll stand, on the 40 or the 50. But yeah, I mean, that's, I was happy. We got 2 touchdowns returned. And then you started seeing teams when our kid, he brings back 2 touchdowns the first 2 weeks that now they're kicking it anywhere but to him. So that, it had to make an adjustment. So that was, that felt good. But like I said, you give an onside. I mean, they're giving, the other team just scored touchdown and then they get an onside kick. Not a good feeling. But and then I'll go over. I watched the Coach Trotta when you had Coach Trotta on.
He's a dude. He literally is. He's smart and really good at what he does.
Yeah, I mean, he's John Carroll College, and not that I don't disagree with this, but he would talk about how everything with Punt Block. It was a Punt Block philosophy. We don't call it punt return. So when I came into our Otter Valley, I was all right. Let's go Punt Block. Let's go get it. Let's go send the guys. Let's send some bullets or whatever. I guess the year before I had been there, they were up 2 touchdowns, 4th quarter. They're getting the ball back. The other team's punting to them. They pick up a roughing the punter penalty, roughing the kicker, and my head coach, your special team guy, you still answer to the head coach, and he's like, I don't want us going after any more punts for years. I just want the ball. So we're careful about we do it unless I know we can do it. We're just looking to get the ball back. I put 2 guys back there. I'm worried about a fake. One thing I've seen in college, I saw another team do it, is, you got your 2 split ends, but then they have a slot, and the slot hides behind the split end, goes in motion. That's just something I've seen, maybe something I'll want to do on punt. But, I mean, we're worried about a fake. We're worried who's the eligible numbers. Do they have tight end? Are they, we're just looking to get the ball back. I don't know what your punt return philosophy is.
I am full swat it down and in the face. I mean, we didn't have any this year, but I think I did a poor job at prepping it this year with COVID and all that. Year before we had 2 or 3. We had 2 in one game and still lost that game, which sucked. That was a whole nother disaster. But yeah, we had 2 or 3 the year before. I can't remember off the top of my head which one. No, I'm all about pressure and either forcing a bad kick or block. I've had one roughing the punter in 2 years. So I mean,
okay.
I think it's more about technique and angles. You get the roughing when the kids don't understand the angles. That's what it is. I mean that's the biggest thing. If that's again where you got to talk block points, and if you're like I said, angles, block point angles. I mean, what's the angle trajectory you gotta take in when rushing and based off where you are in the punt block? I mean, we would put 8 or 9 on the line. Now, is that always the answer? No. And would I adjust if I felt like a team would be had some fakes in the bag? Yeah, but I haven't had a team run a fake on me in 2 years. I mean, my honest philosophy is if most teams that when they see pressure won't run a fake.
Really? Okay.
I generally believe that from what I've seen. But again, if I think so, I'll adjust. I mean, I can always just bring pressure from one side and still drop 2 or 3. But I'm also big on numbers. Okay, 5 on 4, 4 on 3. I mean, how can I get numbers advantage on you and try to get somebody unblocked? So.
Now, do you have people, like, if they're, like, do you assign, is it like a man, like I do man coverage, so it's like, it's just, you have the 2 guys back deep, so that's like your cover 2, and then everybody's manned up underneath just in case there's a fake. I mean, is that something, do you have, like,
I mean, so far I've only put 1 guy deep. I'll have my two guys that deal with the gunners, and then I usually, like, leave 1. I mean, unless it's a rugby team, or they have some really weird formation, I might leave 2 out of the rush. But I usually have a backside guy for contain, and then, like I said, I'll have if I'm not going full rush mode, I'll have 1 just kind of about 5 yards off, and he'll have a key that he'll need to keep an eye on. Like, this is what we're worried about this week. He's my adjuster. Usually it's one of my smart kids. Usually it's like a linebacker.
Okay, yeah.
Historically, because usually I'm sending my safety corner kids because they can run.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, but yeah, like I said, like we were in a playoff game. Like I said, my head coach is still like affected by that, and he's like, "We're not going after it, but maybe more time passed on." Like you said, I think that was a big point when roughing. So are you saying that roughing is more likely to occur when they're coming straight on as opposed like when you're going for an angle?
Yeah, and because I listened to it's also, I mean, there's 18 different philosophies on how to have your hands, one hand, two hand. Yeah, I'm not gonna get into that, but yeah, I mean, you need to understand the angle so you're not like ramming right into the middle of the kicker. Like I'm coming across the front of him or off to the side and getting my hand, like, because I remember listening, who was it? I think it was Cincinnati University at our state clinic last year, and his big thing was one hand, and especially if you're like an inside guy, you're running pretty much right by him with your hand here. Whereas if you're an outside guy, you're here coming across. I mean, it's all angles, and I mean, I've not seen it in 2 years. A roughing the punter. But also, I mean, kids need to understand situations. I mean, if you know you're not going to get there, run by them. Like you'll know. If they get a hand on you, you're not getting there. Like that, you're just not. I mean, if they have decent operation time, if they're 2 seconds or less, if somebody gets a hand on you, you're not getting there. It just ain't happening. I mean, you're not. If their operation times is more than 2 seconds, you have a chance. But there's not a chance. I mean, that's where if their operation times 2 seconds or less, you get to be essentially an edge guy getting there. So.
Yeah. And then, all right, so we didn't return anything for a punt, but punt return definitely went better than my punt team. So this is a whole saga. I mean, doing punt. At first, I wanted our quarterback doing it. Then it was like, well, do we really want the quarterback punting? I liked it for fakes and stuff, but when I realized that we weren't probably going to fake it, we used just our most athletic kid, and it was so we struggled with the snap. We struggled with our punter, like you said, operation time. Our punter was too close. He was at 12 or 13 by the end of the season. We got better with it. My head coach helped me. We got him at 15. I use a shield. I do the one where he's standing. One guy, it's 3 guys. One guy's here. He's sideways, and then he closes. But one game, I was on the other side of that. We won a game, but we had 2 punts blocked. If we had a third, I think I was walking home. And we took a look at film, and it was just simply our guys not doing 1,001, 1,002. It was just snap, I'm going, and that's the easiest. You're going to get your punt blocked, and we had 2 blocked. Like I said, our punter was too close. So and like I said, we just looked on film. We told the snapper, hey, we know you want to get downfield, but we need you to stay in and block. We didn't give up any punt returns, but just giving up those punt blocks, I mean, those, you might as well just go for it at that point. But
yeah. Well, that's where if you start getting that problem, that's where quick kicking, it can be a more beneficial thing. Put him at 8, put the quarterback at 8, and just let him quick kick.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of why I wanted to have initially I wanted to have our quarterback. He had an ankle injury, so then it was like, all right, we can't use him. I mean, especially when you got 25 kids, you just kind of pick it out. Our punter had good hang time, so he's not the best punter, but and it, like I said, the operation time was not our snapper. He didn't snap it the way he's supposed to. He just kind of did our own thing. We actually, one of our coaches he was a long snapper in college. So I kind of that was just kind of the kid being obstinate, defiant, just shooting it back there. But, it wasn't too bad, obviously. Oh, and then later in the year, we had a snap go over the head. So, like I said, and that goes back to if your technique isn't good,
Well, I start pre-COVID. I was bringing my long snappers in one morning every week to work stuff. Because we get days. We get time in the off season where we can pull 7 aside. So I bring 3 or 4 in. We do some drills to warm up stuff, and then they'd get some snapping in the morning. We'd work on technique, and our long snapper coach this year was pretty decent. He did a good job during the season during the summer when he's finally able to get there. But that's always one of my emphasis is getting them and the punter ready. We worked on snap, and at least kick punting steps. We don't punt every day because you're just gonna wear out your kicker. But the snap to punt exchange and then dry kicks for the punter virtually every day. And then last 2 weeks we didn't, but most of the season, like I said, they're always their goal is 2 seconds or less. That's always my big thing is I put my punter about 14. 15 for a high school snappers can always be a little much.
Okay.
And even 14 is maybe a little much, but I feel comfortable at 14 and a half, somewhere in there. I think that, again, that's my overarching. Even during 2 days, even during camp days in the summer, it is snap and dry, at least dry kicks, if not actual punts. That way they can get a rhythm and work on it. A lot of times I would stand there with a timer and say that sucked. Do it again. That's good. There you go. Better. Or even if it's still off, if it's better over the previous time, okay. A lot of things is what they don't understand. High school long snappers is how much of a hip-oriented activity it is, hip and upper body. Short snapping is just essentially hips, whereas I said that wrong. Short snapping is essentially just upper body, whereas long snapping is a full body movement. Because you literally should initially move backwards as a snapper if you do it correctly. You should lose ground from how hard you should snap. But that's the thing they don't understand. That's why especially for long snappers, squatting, deadlift are such important exercises to build strength. And honestly, actually, my favorite one's front squat because I'm not a big back squat person anyways, but I love front squats because it works your core, doesn't create back problems like a back squat does, and it hits all the same movements as back squat. Outside of it, works the core more, which is good for your snappers too.
Thank you for that. No, I appreciate that. And like Coach Strada said, if you're doing a drill or something, get the snapper, get your punter. They don't have, and like you said, don't wear out your punter. Don't wear out your punter, but they should be snapping. The punter should be catching it and doing his steps. And one thing I'll do, just getting back to Punt Block, one drill, I just picked it up when I was a team manager at Springfield College, is get a volleyball, soccer out, I'll kick it, and then just get the kids, like you said, used to that angle, used to feeling it, used to get them acquainted with blocking it. All right, so that was punt team, and then PAT. Like you said, short snapping. I had a good, former soccer player. He could kick. Pretty consistent with extra points. We didn't, if we're down there and we're in the red zone, we're gonna go for it. If it's 4th and 3, we're not going out and kicking it. We had a bad snap. Part of me growing as a special teams coach, we had our long snapper get hurt, so then we had to bring in the other kid, and he gave it a ground ball. That's big in a playoff game. When you get into the playoffs, even in Massachusetts, that was a one coach told me that if you're trying to win a state championship, you got to kick extra points consistently, and I think PAT is something you can do. That should be not every day, but that's got to be taken seriously. That's a part of practice. we'll have kids going up against our punt team. We'll offer, if you block this kick, you'll get a reward. Half the time they go off sides. But I mean, that's how I usually conclude special teams. Kid makes a 20-yard kick, everybody's jacked up, everybody's excited. The rest of practice. So that's always. I mean, that's how I do things. I'll get into drill. Like I went to a clinic. I went to clinics this past year, and I went to all the special team stuff. So I got all kinds of drills. But really, that's how I talk with you, is how we go through our special team practice. It doesn't get too dry, but it's, we have to set the tone for practice. Some days are, like I said, worse than others. Sometimes the kids, they're down. You got to find a way to make it exciting. Like I said, we'll give a reward. If you go in and you get by and you block a kick in practice, we'll give you some. We'll give you free Mountain Dews or whatever. And then with defending the PAT, I'm guilty of not really seeing it and understanding it, but the polecat swinging gate, one team, and I just give them credit because they had 3 different versions. They had their 3 different plays out of that set. They had a long snapper who was eligible. He wore, number 5 or 1 or something. You got 6 other guys on the line, 2 guys behind him. And so that, they first time they did it, snap, holder, just threw it to the snapper, and our kids weren't ready for it. I wasn't even ready for it. They kind of did. I want to say they just ran the ball at one point. I think they did a Tebow jump pass, or maybe that's what I'm referring to with the holder, swinging gate, and somebody had to. I asked our defensive coordinator, how do we handle this? What do we want for numbers? Just 8 and 3 and have everybody signed. Do they do swinging gate? No, we did not. We never saw it in Massachusetts.
Xenia used to do it occasionally, but they wouldn't do it every week. It varied. Beaver Creek, who we saw this year, did it. The biggest thing is match numbers. That's the biggest thing. It also depends on how they line. I mean, there's 8,000 ways to line up in polecat, or swinging gate, whatever you want to call it. And then there's 8,000 different fakes. I mean, it depends on how many you had. We had enough film on Beaver Creek. I mean, they ran like 5 different fakes out of it, and they could go both directions. So, I mean, they had a shuffle, a pass, speed option. They had all kinds of stuff. So, like I said, the biggest thing is, especially where like the linemen are, match numbers. And then you always want to be +1, usually in about the middle of the field. And then obviously, if they have a solo guy, just match up with him. I mean, most time when you match up in some sort of like press, they typically won't throw it. Typically. I'm not saying they won't ever, but from my experience dealing with it over 10 years, I mean, it's usually that's usually 1-on-1, and then it's 10-on-10 the rest of the field. I mean, that's really is. And then is it long snapper eligible? Most of the time he is. So be aware of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it again depends on how they line up. There's a bunch of ways. I mean, the best thing I saw them do that I'd never seen before is they ran a shuffle pass out of it. So they fake speed option to the lineman to the left. The tight end to that side run a corner, and then the lineman and the back would essentially run, like reach underneath back towards the long snapper, and he could either speed option it, throw the corner, or pitch the shovel underneath. It's actually, I mean, it was some of the best stuff I've seen in terms of polecat, swing gate stuff. So, I mean, the biggest thing is match numbers and just be physical.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was our week 4 game, and it makes me want to. Some other schools did it. They all, for some reason, they all do it out here in Vermont, and it makes me want to put it in for our team, just so I think it's great. I think it's it keeps everybody on the other team on their toes, and then I think by us doing it, we'll be able to teach how to defend it better.
Yeah.
So that's, and everybody understanding their responsibilities so I mean, that's a thought I have for that, because we got hurt on. I mean, it was 16, instead of it being 14-0, it's 16-0 because we couldn't figure out how to defend that. And it's first year special teams coach. You gotta wear it and try to understand it and help the kids.
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing that my buddy does, and he was on episode 1 of this podcast. He has a huddle playlist of every swinging gate polecat he's ever found, whether it's people he's played, the NFL, the college, other high schools throughout the country. He has an entire playlist of just swinging gate stuff, and he shares it with all the players so they can just kind of see them. He'll sort them in his own way, but he has it. And then he's got drawn up drawings of how to defend each. So he's prepped. I mean, that's one of his biggest things for defending it.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that other things I've kicked around the tires for, just to kind of wrap up special team. We've looked at maybe doing a super spread. Our offensive coordinator, he played at a school, like he played at our school that we play, and they do super spread, so he's big into that. I'm just not sure. You got to really commit to that. That's not something you put in just 1 week to try it. But they did it 11 straight across the entire 53 and a third. And they use a rollout. They get the kid going. I don't know how you feel about the rugby kick. I want snap, kick, away. I mean,
if you have somebody that can teach the kid rugby punt correctly, I think you're fine. I think if you don't know, it's if not, the best place is let like freshmen and JV trial and error. Here's the great thing about, and I view this for offense, defense, special teams. Freshman and JV ball is your trial ground. I mean, by the time this comes out, the video already came out. But Tuesday I have a interview with Dave Ramsey. Not Dave Ramsey, Jesus. Danny Ramsey. Danny's a buddy of mine in Texas. I say Dave Ramsey because I'm a business teacher, and he's obviously one of the schools of thought in terms of personal finance. But Danny Ramsey is an offensive coordinator in the great state of Texas. Danny talked about on that interview podcast, whatever you want to call it, about using freshmen and JV as an experiment. There's plays and formations he has that they haven't run yet varsity. But he gives it to his JV freshman coaches to run down there to see how it worked, get it on film, and see how somebody adjusted to it. B, did it work? Okay, can we run that now at the varsity level? Do we need to tinker with stuff because it didn't really work? Is it a scheme problem, or is it a technique problem? Is it an alignment problem? And that's, I think, the best way to test it. If you don't want to use it at varsity yet and you're unsure, do it for JV or freshman. Or heck, if you guys have control of your middle school program, have your middle school do it. I mean, teach them up and have them do it. I mean, that's the other easy way. Personally, I mean, if rugby works for you, it works. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, it causes some problems for them in terms of rush. But here's the other thing. You're not going to get the looks college gets. That's the other thing, where they rush 3 or 4 people. I mean, college film is about useless for us most of the time. In terms of
like for special teams.
Yeah, in terms of punt, I think the rest you're mostly fine. But in terms of punt, I mean, at least in what punt rush you might see, it's about useless because I'm not going to see most of those punt rushes. I mean, they bring 3 or 4. Yeah. The rest kind of sit there in like a spy technique. I mean, you're just not. It's useless, in my opinion, for us high school guys. Because I'll see a rush most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much just my first year as a special teams coach. Like I said, I've always done wide receivers and DBs. I know that's what you do. When I was at Nauset, we had a huge staff, so it was like 11 guys. They just wanted me just wide receivers. They didn't want me. It was one of those. So you've been in those programs where it's like, that's your baby. You make sure the wide receivers are doing what they need to do, or else you're gonna hear it from the head coach. And it's just wide receivers. And then I've coached I've done wide receivers, helping out with special teams, DBs, doing JV on Monday. So
yeah,
just my experiences. But I'm only 27, so I love clinics. I love learning. But that, I mean, I know what kind of, obviously you guys. What is the Ohio State Clinic? Or what's your clinic schedule like in a normal year?
Normal year we're Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Thursday is a half day because people are obviously have school that day. And most of the state takes that Friday off in terms of a personal day or professional development day. And then Saturday is just usually the first half of the day. Thursday night is like your keynote speakers. Some of your big, we'll get like 3 or 4 Big Ten speakers. The National Guard will speak. Usually like Pat Fitzgerald's there. A strength coach of some kind usually. Friday morning, the Ohio State head coach will speak. And then we'll have like 2 or 3 other speakers that morning. And then that are kind of more keynotes. And then usually go lunch and then come back. You get breakout rooms for about 4 hours. And then it's your Ohio High School Football Coaches Association dinner. They give out awards and you have a speaker and all that lovely stuff. But usually isn't football. It's like a culture talk or something. Some people may go to that. Some people choose not to and just go out, do festivities and hang out instead. And then Saturday mornings, it's like two or 3 speakers and then breakout rooms. This year, by the time this airs, I mean, you can still sign up for it because the videos are just going to stay there. $15, 100. We're aiming for 100. We have 105 people committed. Whether that all pans out, who knows? I've had one cancel on me this week. And it'll all be digital, pre-recorded, so you can just watch them wherever you want. We have some good people on there. Jimmy Flynn, special teams at St. X, will be there. I mean, he's probably, and I would say probably one of the best special teams coordinators in the country. He just coaches at an AIA school.
Yeah,
Jimmy's a stud. Who else do we got to do in special teams? I don't even remember off the top of my head. Like I said, I got 105 coaches I got memorized and keep track of. Dan Beard at Millersville in Pennsylvania did a special teams clinic. Assumption College's special teams coordinator is tentative for a clinic. There's a couple other ones. I got an email back from another D3. They're going to talk special teams. So, I mean, like I said, we'll have the variety, special teams, offense, defense, culture, / program development, whatever you want, however you want to classify that. So, I mean, It'll be good. And like I said, it doesn't have to be Ohio coaches. Ohio State coaches are going to sign up for it too. It's $15. It ain't bad.
That's a bar. Because when you go to the in-person clinics, they charge you $100 usually.
Oh yeah, and I mean ours normally in person is like $65, $75. I think if you do it early enough, it's like $45 or $55 if you register ahead of time. But I mean, part of that is, I mean, you got to rent the hotel and the hall and pay for a bunch of stuff. So I get that. But this year, essentially, you're just paying dues. I mean, that's about it. So, I mean, we don't, I mean, I know Michigan's still like $100, but they also provide liability insurance for coaches. So I get why theirs is so expensive. You get the clinic plus the liability insurance. Like, liability insurance ain't cheap. So, like, I get it, like, 100%, because my buddy helps run that one. So, yeah. So, I mean, that's a normal year. Like I said, if you haven't signed up for the Ohio Clinic, there, shameless plug, there it is. Okay? If you want, you don't have to. If you don't want to, we got a lot of speakers, so...